Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Paulette Jackson, and I am here for Women in Jazz and Media. I am so very honored to have with me as my guest today Grammy-nominated jazz artist, Miss Marilyn Scott. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you.
I'm honored to be here. And Paulette, thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Marilyn, I've been, of course, reading up on your history and this time in the industry and so on and so forth. But I want to tell you, for the second time this morning, I've listened to your most recent release. It was back in, I believe, in May of this year, correct?
That's right. June 1st, the end of May 30th.
Okay. The Landscape.
Right on. Yeah.
Fantastic. But we're going to get to that in a second. But I want to hear from you to tell our audience a little bit about your background, how you got into the industry, and some of the people maybe you collaborated and worked with.
Well, I started singing at an early age, like most musicians and artists do as singers. At school, bands, and so forth. And I from Los Angeles, and I moved out of high school. I moved up to the Bay Area, and started working up there and going to college. But the whole idea was the college was just a second thing, but it was about being part of the scene in the Bay Area, and it was quite a great musical experience going on up there, because that was really all the 70s. And, so I was in all kinds of bands that sort of honored a lot of jazz artists, and we did our own versions of those tunes and wrote as well. I was in a lot of bands. I was in a step band, where we did the moves, and it was called Jamal. It was named after Ahmed Jamal.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
so
I've been part of a lot of different kinds of things. I got involved in singing background on people's recordings, and that gave me a great leg up into the studio and learning the studio, and being around a lot of recording artists. And it was such a great experience growing up there, the music scene, and at that time too. I mean, it was a melting pot of all kinds of, from rock and roll, soul, that jazz is the radio stations up there in the Bay Area and San Francisco Bay Area was all about playing all that music around each other, and so everybody got really excited about Charles Earling, and then all of a sudden, you play Cold Blood, and then you play George Duke, and,
right.
So it was a really cool time, and anything older too. I mean, Etta James and all that around each other, and some rock and roll too. So it was a great time, and it's different now.
Yes.
You kind of have the parents that that teaches the kids about or plays those nostalgic albums and that so that they get a taste of what that was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I moved back up to LA because I started, doing more session work, and that led to me trying to be an artist, and that happened in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was working with a lot of great musicians here in LA that I got to grow up with, and that was included all the guys from Toto that were in a David Page, and I was a big fan of his father, Marty Page, who was producing and arranging for George Benson, and and a lot of great singers, and my. I was growing up different, I wasn't like the singers that were in the previous decades where they were part of bands and traveled with them, and got to sing a lot of the great old standards that by all these different great Count Basie and Duke Ellington and things like that. So the times had changed, and so it was more about trying to find your niche. I always believed jazz was something you attain to, you learn in, you get up here with, and so I was respectful in the sense that and I was content with being a contemporary jazz artist for a long time. And then I started to try to dig in harder as a writer and be more complex and try to bring in some singing situations that were a little different. I never was a scat singer. I can scat sing, but it wasn't part of the tradition, that I was kind of hanging out with.
Right.
So, I've kind of led myself around a lot of different arenas because of the opportunity at the time. Was like, if you become more of a pop artist, then you will have the ability to do anything you want to do, was always the carrot. And, it kind of postponed a lot of us because it wasn't always that way, and we got moved around to a lot of labels. And I was around a lot of wonderful people at different labels. Some of them, kind of heard the dream that I had, and others thought that I should move more in a different direction.
Right.
But life is what it is, and you have to just keep dodging and weaving and going and trying to be with and stay with the people that you are getting inspiration from.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Etta James, who is one of my favorite singers.
That's right.
And I know some of your influences that I was looking at, like some of my influences coming up. Aretha Franklin, Jean Carn. Can I just tell you, I absolutely love her, and I have a personal soft spot in my heart for her because my brother wrote for her. My late brother wrote for her. Yeah, and so I was looking at some of your influence. I was like, wow.
Who was your brother?
My brother, he was a musician and he was a keyboardist and a composer. His name was Mike Jackson. And he wrote for the OJs. He wrote for Jean Carr. Yeah, he passed away. Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away. So yeah, but yeah, he was very heavy into the industry. Started off with, I don't know if you're familiar with the Dazz Band, but at that time he was with them. They were called the Kinsman Dazz. They were Kinsman Dazz at that time when he was a part of that group. So yeah.
Isn't that Atlanta-based?
They are Cleveland-based.
Cleveland-based.
Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio-based. Yeah, absolutely. They moved on since then, but they're Cleveland-based.
Ohio too?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'm here now, snowing. But anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, your influences, like Donny Hathaway and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about with you not only those influences, but growing up. Have you always, and maybe you touched on this, so I apologize if you did, but have you always kind of navigated, do you feel like, to jazz or other areas of music like soul, R&B, or pop, or have you always gravitated really to, has that really have pulled you as jazz coming up?
Well, I think that, R&B led me to jazz. And I had to go, my mom passed away when I was really young, and I had to go live with some relatives in the late night station Coma out of Oklahoma we used to get, and they played Martha Reeves and, the Shirelles, and, I was influenced by, and I started to hear the early Aretha Franklin, and I'm moved by black music. It has always helped me spiritually, and I believed in it because it was sung with such, great feeling, as opposed to other things that were going on that I just didn't connect with. But Como was a great beginning for me as a 12-year-old, and and so that's really where I got my start with that. And so I got back to California. We were in bands that basically were blues bands. We were doing a lot of blues, and so when I went up to the Bay Area, then we got jobs at those days doing 5 sets a night of what those tunes were, the most popular tunes. So we did OJ's tunes, we did Glass Night in the Pit tunes, we did a lot of things that were of the what's considered pop.
Right.
Yeah,
great. That's fantastic. Now let's jump into your most recent album, and that is The Landscape. And I jotted down some favorites of mine as I was listening, and thrown out into space, The Landscape, which is the title track, and Irreplaceable, and Unzip.
Right.
Those were my go-tos, my favorites as I was listening. And I think the one out of that list is Unzip, just because, and I say that because of the lyrics and of the instrumentation of it, but the whole project, Marilyn, is like really fantastic and very unique to me as I'm listening. And Unzip, I think, out of all of the tracks, is probably my favorite. And just talk a little bit about how that project came about, and then after that, I want to ask you about the artwork.
The Landscape is about where we live in our day-to-day and what's happening to us, and we, even though there's so much going on, we have an ability to go into nature and get a relief, find some peace, and even the most situations that, like on Zip, where if you're going to take the bus down to the ocean, if you're close enough, that you can take your family on just the price of the bus and go down there and have some lunch and enjoy yourselves in nature, which is all about saving your life, really. And you can be, and Summer Night is about being on your front porch and just, your street can be the wilderness that you can't get to, because there are some trees, there'll be some birds in those trees, and
absolutely,
and there'll be a sunset that you'll be able to catch, and if you've been there with someone that you could share that with, you've got it. That's 100% right there. So the project, the whole project is about finding peace in that and having a responsibility to take care of it, without it being preachy,
It definitely was not that. It was just going through each track. It just gave me a sense of, and let me just say this to you, Marilyn. As someone who appreciates music, jazz and other genres, for me personally, live instrumentation, real musicians playing on projects, you can't beat that. And I'm not going to knock, the whole digital realm and all that, because, especially during this pandemic.
Something to be offered there too, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We had to be creative and, that kind of thing, especially when you're collaborating with other people trying to get a project out. It gets kind of tricky if you're all not in the same space.
That's right.
But just for me, that live instrumentation, especially on live performances and in recordings, it just gives it a whole nother dynamic. And I thank you as a appreciation of music. There's just nothing that beats that. I've always been an advocate of that.
Yeah.
I've always been an advocate of live instrumentation using real musicians, real live musicians. So I thank you. Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah. Very important, and it's inspirational. And when you're playing live, that's what's cool about a live gig, because then it transforms itself every time you play it, and that's the audience sitting in front of you is going to get another piece of that pie, of that tune that never existed before, and it'll be different
Correct.
for the next set of people that you're with,
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what artistry can do for us all, whether it's a ballet or a painting. It's going to be good for everybody.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So let's talk about the artwork for the landscape. I kept looking at this artwork at the cover. I'm like, and I got a little closer. I'm like, so the image itself, the artwork itself,
right.
And then when you look deeper into it, you see images within that image.
That's right.
And you have to really look closely. Like every time I would look at it, I would see something that I didn't catch before. So please talk a little bit about the inspiration for the artwork and who the artist is.
Well, the artist is Lou Beach, and he did my very first cover, Dreams of Tomorrow.
Okay.
He is fantastic. He's done Weather Report album covers. He did a lot of the Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
He also writes. He's a very prolific artist and writer, and pardon me, this particular series that he did on birds, because I follow him on Facebook, and he's always posting all his things. I said that would be great for the landscape, because it's a bird, and the message is a little bit about faith. And it's the title of it is "Oh Sweet Jesus, Bird of the Burning Tomato Cans." Wow. I don't know if that's anything, but
wow.
You can see Jesus holding a lamb. You can, if you were to ask him, I'm sure he would have some bizarre answer for you. But what I got out of it was, I saw faithfulness in it, in nature.
Yes.
And that's what was important to me. And I said, this could be the last, project that I do. And if it is, then it'd be great to end with Lou, just as I started with Lou.
Okay.
And so it was important. And when I asked him about it, he got really excited. And so that's how that came.
Wow, it's really fantastic. And I know that I'll go back again tonight and look at it again, I'll see something else that I didn't catch before. So it's very, very unique.
Go to his website,
I will.
And check out his work. It's
absolutely.
It's really wild. Yeah, and it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's like, oh, wow, I have to talk about that. I have to ask about that. Yeah, absolutely. So you've collaborated with numerous musicians over your career. And let's talk about, since we're in 2022, ending the year out with your project that came out earlier this year, let's talk about some of the musicians that have played on this particular project with you.
It's produced by Jimmy Haslip. He's a well-known bass player and producer these days. He was one of the original members of the Yellow Jackets, and I met Russell Ferrani and Jimmy Haslip. I met Russell up north in the Bay Area when I was living up there, because he is from San Jose. And I met Jim through Russ when they started the Yellow Jackets. So the three of us have been, writing and, producing together for all these years. And so it was real, he had been doing a lot of producing. I said, Jim, I need your help on this. Would you, help me with this? And he was more than happy. And the rest of the guys are really, with the exception of a few, people that I've been writing with for years, and which would be Russell. Russell and I wrote Unzip and The Landscape and Irreplaceable and The Sun. So, and I keep, it's just a automatic thing to go back and say, look, I've got some ideas and some melodic stuff, and what do you think? And there's never a no. It's always, all right, let's look at a calendar and look, when can we start? And so those kinds of friendships, they last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And when I worked with George Duke, it was the same way. It was always, you just would go over and see George and Corinne and be, hi, Marilyn, what's going on? And everybody would start talking. They'd be in the middle of a session, but I wasn't the only one that got that treatment. They were the kind of people that always brought in everybody and invited them to have that place in the heart where they could just knock on the door and say, what's up?
Yeah.
Those are friendships that never die.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It was, and Michael Landau played guitar, and we played, what else? Oh, Scott Kinsey and I got together and wrote a couple of tunes, that's really it. It's the same players, really, and we did it actually with, it was COVID, and we couldn't see each other. So we were passing files around. So maybe Russ and I would start the tune and write it really, kind of over the phone, and get an idea of where we wanted it, and then he would send me the file to Jimmy, and Jimmy would pass it to Gary Novak, and Gary Novak would put drums on it at his house. And then pass it back. And then it would go over to Michael Landau, and Mike would put some guitar on it. And then go back to Jim, and he'd call me and say, I got another, let's listen to this. And then we'd say, okay, it needs maybe some percussion or maybe a solo. We got to figure out who would really sound good on this. What's really interesting to me is that in a studio, it's also a great thing to be in the studio and everybody collaborating about, we can do this.
Right.
Instead of going here, we could actually turn this here. And that's a great creative process. I love it. But in this case, it was that you couldn't, I wouldn't, after asking somebody to do me a favor and come and be part of this, they'd send it back, and you go, okay. Now it's going over here, and it was kind of neat because it, with every hand it went to, it changed and came back to you, and you go, okay, that's where it's going to be now. And I mean, that was exciting in a way because you were waiting for that to come. You get a little email saying, check this out on this tune, and then you go, oh wow, that really is good.
Yeah.
Jimmy Brantley, he played on, a drummer played on two things, and he's Latin, and he just brought so much to the feeling of it. And if I wanted more of that feeling, it was really exciting to hear what he would come up with. It was really a fantastic way to do it, even though it's hard, I like the studio, and I like everybody being together and playing
together, right.
And so this was a little different.
I was going to say that for this pandemic, it was so challenging and so different that all the artists had to kind of rework and kind of revamp and kind of reshift everything, and what I was going to ask you kind of led me to that, is that do you feel that, and I've asked other artists just in conversation, do you feel like the pandemic in any way, shape, or form maybe affected your creativity?
Without a doubt. I mean, there's just no way of saying it that you're worried about what's your future holds, and and your livelihood. It
Mhm.
brought down everybody. They had to close, and you know, we're trying to find ways to stay alive, really, in more ways than one.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it really did. We're back at it now. We're back playing, and it's masks and everything, but it was serious, really
Yes.
serious. And only the strong survived in a way,
Yeah,
because bring
absolutely.
down your spirit. Artists aren't the strongest ones in the world. We all have suffer from self-doubt and all kinds of things. So, it can have an effect on you. But I think overall, when you saw the music come out of this,
Mhm.
there's so many artists I could mention that I'm so inspired by the music that came out of the COVID, that
Mhm.
was stronger, more artistic, very creative, pushing the limits, and I'm inspired by that. And, want to do the same. So I think it actually made music change.
Absolutely. I believe so too. And hopefully, even as things are getting or have gotten back into a swing, and people will start doing live shows again, that each of us as artists, no matter what level of artistry it is, that we carry a lot of that experience with us continuously, and to remember, I think, how it made us feel, interact, create, so on and so forth, but we still carry that with us as we continue to create, and still, being able to collaborate and so on and so forth, but we keep that spirit of how it made us feel, and how it made us kind of shift and maneuver some things around, in order to be able to continue to be a creative, if that makes sense.
Oh, it
Um,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah. So I'm going to say to you that with this project here, and you did it during the pandemic, it's fantastic. It really is. And I can hear the spirit of all of that in it. And just looking at, again, going back to the artwork, just that whole thing. I can feel it, I can hear it, and I can see it. And congratulations to you. Kudos to you. It's fantastic. It really, really is. It
Okay.
really is fantastic. And I'm very honored that I'm able to speak to you today.
Well, it's great to share some thoughts about it, and you asked some really great questions. So,
Oh, thank you.
it's good it's great to elaborate on all that.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to any up and coming musician, writer, singer coming up through the ranks?
Just to stay positive, and believe in yourself. Like we were talking earlier, that the ups and downs can make you doubt yourself, and that kind of stops the process. Um, you're not as confident, and I think uh, be bold, and go forward, and be inspired, and listen to other people to be inspired, because
Mhm.
it, you know that's that's when it really happens. That's when the excitement happens,
Mhm.
when you and you can even be putting on records, and just get
Absolutely.
inspired that way, or go out and see some folks play, and it does it. But I think that's the best thing ever, is to be inspired by your peers, and the people that that are young too, young and old. I mean,
Mhm.
Ron Carter, he's still inspiring people.
Yes.
And look at
Yes.
Mara Joy,
Yes.
she's on fire. So there's some really great, collaborations happening in music, and they don't even have
Absolutely.
to know each other.
I know. I've been seeing a lot more of that, especially during the last couple of years or so, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah,
What I've seen come out of all of that, it's really been fantastic,
yeah,
and it keeps going. It's ongoing, so it's really fantastic to see and hear what's coming out of that.
yeah.
How can people get in touch with you? Where can they follow you and send you messages and just kind of follow your music?
Well, MarilynScott.com. We got a pretty good little website there, and people can ask questions, and get in touch that way. And I'll come and talk with them too. And hopefully we're going to be playing. Come out to the club and pull on my shirt tail, and I will answer any question and sit down and talk. And I love being in front of people and playing music, because it's all about stories of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's all this music is about life that we see it, and it's great to share it and talk about the things that are really beautiful and sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's all a part of that. Absolutely. Any last minute takeaways that you want to tell our audience, or anything that you want to share that we may not know about Miss Marilyn Scott?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't have anything to really share that would be like exciting, like there's a new project happening or something. But I'm already writing. But
good.
I just want everyone to stay as positive as they can. We've got a lot going on to divide us, and I don't want to see us lose faith in each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to hold each other responsible for everything that's being said and done, and we just keep away from the badness. Just really be positive. And I'm old school. Love is the answer, and we need to take care of each other.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's what all I would want to say is that we have to keep the faith and keep working towards the greater good for all of us.
Thank you so much. And give us your website one more time.
It's MarilynScott.com.
Perfect. Simple and perfect. If you can't remember that, shame on you. I thank you. Yeah, well, I think it's pretty simple. People should be able to remember that and follow you. And you're on Facebook, of course.
Yes, I am. And it's Marilyn Scott Music on SoundCloud, and Marilyn Scott Music on Instagram, and yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to make sure that I follow you on all your social media.
I'm so bad at really promoting myself.
It's okay. We'll help you do that.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Marilyn, for taking the time
Paulette,
out today.
I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks for making my Sunday a little better, okay?
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay,
everyone, I am Paulette, and I am for Women in Jazz Media. I'm talking with Miss Marilyn Scott today. Thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with us today, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. It'll happen soon, okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a great holiday.